Excuse me, I had to have a little sip of coffee real quick before I got started. I didn't want to get myself all tongue tied as I often do because I talk a lot all day long. Um, that said, thank you for joining me. This is What I've Been Thinking with Marcus Cage. Of course, I am Marcus Cage, also known by Young Morpheus on my other channels or channel. Tonight, I decided, we're just going to talk about a whole mix of different topics tonight. I don't have anything specific. Of course, those who follow my other channels, they might be familiar with what I talked about. What was that? Last night. I get everything all mixed up along with all the studying and things that I do. But yeah, I believe last night I talked about on the political matrix. We talked about Israel versus Pakistan. I mean, versus Palestine. Sorry. And though I normally focus a good deal on a lot of these events that are going on. Sorry, the light's a little bright on me. But uh, I normally focus on a lot of these world events, and right now, even though a lot of them have been picking up, there hasn't been as much content from me on it because I've been just kind of waiting to see which way it's going to break or not. Because before, of course, we've seen in the past these kind of situations start developing, of course, in the Gaza Strip between Israel and Palestine. And so it's just a matter of, is this going to be a bigger situation or is it just going to be one of these minor flare ups? Well, as I've been looking at it more and more and more, I believe that it's not going to just be a little flare up. Now, to what extent it gets to, that I am uncertain of at the time. And so that's why I'm trying to bide my time a little bit and try to take in as much information as I can, though it has been a little scarce on finding a lot of information actually. Um, when you look into a lot of the mainstream sources, you might get a couple little sound bites here and there. They'll talk about some bombings, a couple of interviews. Maybe they'll talk about protests that are going on here stateside. But what I'm seeing is that for this to be going on and the way it's been going on and how it's been escalated moment by moment, for the media to seem like they're almost kind of casually covering it versus it being the top story and breaking news and covering minute by minute, um, it's kind of ignored. And another thing which I find very interesting is you would think that the media would find it a bigger story or find it an interesting story that one of the targets which the Israeli Air Force has been going after, particularly, has been media buildings. Excuse me, coffee. Why are they attacking media buildings? And why is the media not concerned that they're attacking media buildings? And it's not just, some random local Hamas media we're talking about here. We're talking about Al Jazeera. We're talking about Associated Press. Um, I believe there's a couple other it's a couple other organizations which I'm forgetting about, but this has been multiple. Um, there have been multiple media uh, organizations which have suffered under this, and I found that it was kind of interesting that not very many people are covering anything about what I'm forgetting his first name, but Erdogan, the president of Turkey. What he said to Putin not too long ago was he said directly that it's about time that Israel be taught a lesson. Now, though Turkey is a part of Europe and it is a part of the United Nations and NATO and all that, we often forget that a lot of the people there are of Arab descent and are Muslims. And so there is a kinship that a lot of these people feel, um, what's going on in that situation. Hold on one second. All right, sorry about that. So I was talking about Putin and Turkey. So you have Erdogan who is saying that they need to be taught a lesson. I feel like another thing which we, especially stateside, are missing, and I would say anybody that's living in any of the Western countries in general, we're looking at it from a Western point of view, even if we are sympathetic to some of these other nations, which are dealing with modern day colonialism. But that said, without us looking at it from their perspective, it's hard for us to understand what might transpire and what other countries have learned from our government's behavior and how they might be actually setting up situations for our government to fall into. I'll explain what I mean. Over the past, we say, 20 years, going on 21 years, Afghanistan and Iraq and all that stuff's been going on. And you factor in all the other nations like Chad and Syria, and that also had military actions and all that stuff in the whole, you know, hunt for terrorism, no matter where it's at. That said, with all of that going on, all of these nations are getting to understand how the United States operates. And I don't mean just from a military standpoint, I mean just from a reaction standpoint with the government. So if you know the government is going to often come in and react a certain way, then it can be kind of easy for you to start to pull them into situations which you want them to be in. Now, if a bunch of nations all know that they're dealing with Biden, for instance, which is far more hawkish than, I mean, any president that we've had of, probably the last, 20 years. He's probably the most hawkish. And I would say more than Bush, because we got to remember, not only was he cheering on and trying to figure out the best ways that he can help President Bush. You go back to Reagan and all the Iran-Contra crap, all that stuff that was going on, he was doing the same thing. He was involved back then. And if you go back throughout Biden's career, he's always been a warmonger. He's always been involved in either trying to get involved in some kind of coup, advocating for militaries to go in, something of that degree. And I don't know if you all are familiar out there with Frank Analysis. If you are not familiar, you definitely need to check out his channel. He has very, very, very good content, and he has a lot of great guests on there. I've been fortunate to be on a couple of times, and I should be on coming up Friday. I'll be on the Frank Analysis. So that said, he was doing a very, very good breakdown of some of the policies which Biden did, even into Colombia. So when you start seeing the impact which Biden had far before he got to the level he's at, it's good, and you understand that the military-industrial complex, the DoD, Pentagon, Homeland Security, they know how to play with presidents. They know how to give them certain information to lead them in the direction which they want them to go. And so with Biden being half senile and already being, ready to go to war at any moment, feeling like America can't be defeated. With that mentality, all these nations know that. That's the reason why, in my opinion, you see China being more aggressive with Taiwan. That's the reason why you see Russia being more aggressive with Ukraine. That's the reason why you see North Korea starting to bulk more against any kind of negotiations with the Biden administration. And then on top of that, you have the situation that we're dealing with right now between Israel and Palestine. The Israeli government knows that Biden is going to back or allow them to do pretty much whatever they want to do. So they're going to go to their most extremist positions and go back to forcing people out. And that's what we see happening right now. They know Biden is not going to do anything, so that's going to push it. And then you have what I talked about earlier with Turkey, and you have Syria and Lebanon, and you have all these other areas which are saying, you know what, the United States isn't going to do anything, and they're going to just be left to just do whatever they want. Should we wait till they bombed out everybody and then they come for us and then figure out what are we going to do at that point, and still wait for the UN to jump in and do something instead of just stand on the side and say, guys, please stop fighting? So what I believe is all of these Arab nations are deciding, you know what? It's now or never to stand up for ourselves. Now, I'm not advocating for any of this by me just giving my opinions on what I believe is happening, but I just want us to be abreast of the situation that's actually going on and what the media is not focused on, and all of these foreign policy things which are involved in the Biden administration. And so, to recap, we have the situation with China, we have situation with Russia, situation with North Korea, we have Israel, Palestine. Now you have what, Syria, Lebanon, and Iran getting involved. I mean, and then, oh, I forgot, you had North Korea that's been going back and forth with Australia. So there's just more and more where, in my opinion, it almost looks like they're starting to take sides where one group is sitting on one side and one group is sitting on the other side. And being a student of history, every time you saw those early divisions start to happen and a superpower over here and a superpower over there, where it's to the point where now in a wartime scenario, it would actually be a lot more balanced. That's when you start leading into a world war scenario. Because if it got to the point where China, Russia, and the United States are pulled into a conflict, which I believe that China is kind of baiting that situation anyway. If you go back to, I believe, let's see, was it maybe a month ago that I did the video where it was China, or I'm not sure when it was right after the inauguration. What he said was that because of the American system going back and forth through Congress and trying to resubmit bills and over and over and trying to get the votes, and okay, this Congress doesn't get it, this person gets out, new president. They said because of how slow the United States is and enacting any kind of changes and momentum in any specific direction, it allows for a nation like China to be able to outmaneuver them and be able to stay on course on a single objective, giving them an advantage, and that they are ready to kind of push the United States out of the way as the number one superpower. And so he's already laid that out. I know I did a video about Dr. Umar Johnson, and he brought up about how Biden, the first thing he did was he wrote a bill for the LGBTQ community. Next thing after that, they passed what was that, an Asian discrimination bill. But he did all that, hey, Black community, if you don't vote for me, you're not Black. And he has done nothing for the Black community. And so some people could misconstrue that as that Biden was doing that for the Asian American community. And I don't believe so. I believe Biden was doing that as he felt some kind of olive leaf to China, because he knows the tensions are rising. A lot of the sentiment which came out under the Trump administration, calling it the Wuhan virus and all of those things, China, whether they actually care or believe that it was very impactful in the racism that went on towards Asian Americans, they're going to use it. That's just common sense. If you have something like that, it's leverage, which you can use against an adversarial nation. And make no mistake, China is an adversarial nation. None of these nations are, in actuality, on our side. Every nation is out for every nation. And if it just so happens that it lines up with a certain nation, with their interests, then they will get together. But for the most part, if it comes down to their nation or our nation, you can understand which way that's going to fall. Let's see. Let's see a couple of comments here. Brian, you said, do you think Israel and Palestine will come to peace? I don't believe it will. I mean, I don't know. There's always the possibility, but what I see going on, especially with all those other events which I named that are going on all at the same time, it always just makes me go back to my foundation, which is the Bible. And the Bible says in the end times, you will see wars and rumors of wars. And right now, I see so many rumors of war right now and build up. And I don't just mean like the posturing from just those presidents. I mean, if you listen to some of the advisors, especially out of China and Russia, the messages which they're conveying, it's very, very, it's starting to get more and more hostile by the moment. And so I think, nations like China feel like, why do we have to sit around and play second fiddle to the US when if we make a couple of moves, we can get ahead of them. And then they have to deal with our terms. And think about it, if you were China, you would probably want that yourself. So you can't rule out that that's a possibility that a nation would want to use or a motive that a nation might have. I believe it's the safest assumption to always assume that other nations are always looking for whatever advantage or upper hand they can get on each other, even if they are allies, because down the road it can always turn into a favor, which you might need later on. You never know; it might be a conflict where, or say, France has an issue with Great Britain, and Great Britain or the United States doesn't want to get involved. Well, if Great Britain had something over the United States, it would force them to have to do them that favor. That's the reason why I say all of these different motives and things you always got to watch, because they're always using leverage on each other. And sometimes it's just a matter of who has more dirt at the specific time, which way it's going to go. What else was I going to talk about? I mean, because we could keep talking about this Israel-Palestine thing all day long, because according to prophecy, how it goes, it says with all of these rumors of war, it says that Israel has to be, hate to say it this way, but in the Bible it says Israel is going to be basically obliterated. It also says Mystery Babylon is going to be obliterated also, which I believe is the United States. So I figure, hey, since it's an open topic, I'll just go ahead and throw out what I honestly believe, and no need to sugarcoat it. But that's what I understand from the Bible. Mystery Babylon is the nation which passes out its philosophies and doctrines around the world. It describes Mystery Babylon as, what does it say? Babylon. Well, it's a mixture of the Roman Empire, Babylon, Egypt. Well, spiritually, Babylon, Egypt, and Sodom and Gomorrah. And it goes in detail why those, what it is about those things. One thing about Sodom and Gomorrah, I know a lot of people, first thing they go to is the homosexuality part. They don't go into in detail about why it was even more egregious than people like to think about. Um, according to the story, and you don't have to believe it or not, but according to the Bible, the angels which were coming to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah for how they treated strangers, because part of their custom was raping strangers, um, and often of the same sex. And in the story, how it goes in the Bible is they wanted to rape Lot's visitors, which were angels. And so that goes into treatment of guests, because that was a practice which they did to all visitors. How does America treat visitors? How does it treat people who are downtrodden and trying to find a better life? In my opinion, I feel as far as any other superpower, probably some of the worst treatment in the world. Um, then you go on to Babylon. Babylon, because spiritually it was full of paganism. And the United States has all of that same paganism. That paganism went into the Greek Empire. Well, it went before that. I mean, Babylon, it was in Egypt, it was in Greece, it was in Anatolia, it was in so many of these places, and it propagated through Western society. And so with that, those same philosophies are all which hold America together. It also goes into what is it? In Egypt meaning bondage. I think we can pretty much see how America would be connected with slavery or bondage. So I guess that's a little darker note. I don't want to get anybody too bummed out and everybody start tuning out on me, but yeah, that's just what it says prophetically, and it's just a matter of if it's just happening now or if it's going to happen a little bit later on. You said the Rothschilds own MTV. If you have anything which I can read on that, I would love to look into it. I don't know very much about the Rothschilds owning MTV, but I do know out of a lot of the elite families, the Rothschilds is one of the biggest. So some of the Rothschilds are in all kind of elite positions, but some of the Rothschilds, I mean, basically they just have the last name. Some of them are like working at hardware stores. They're not as nearly as important. I mean, they might be further down, 15 cousins or something crazy, but not every single Rothschild is, controlling everything. It's only like I want to say maybe like 10% of the Rothschilds who are even involved in a lot of the stuff that would be so-called conspiracies. Majority of them, uh, from the research I've done on the Rothschilds, they're not a very close-knit family as far as get-togethers and, you know, I guess all the things that would encompass, normal functioning families. So I guess that's what I got there on the Rothschilds. Any other questions, Brian? Yeah, I was watching a debate earlier, um, in kind of in the faith fields, and it was basically two very knowledgeable people. Well, I guess three people, because it was three people in the debate, and I think I probably saw out of any type of debate, no matter which topic, probably one of the biggest examples of trying to dodge getting caught in errors in your philosophy. I mean, it was supposed to be a debate. It was set up from an interview. Um, it was set up from an interview type standpoint where they were just asking all the questions. They kept all the responses down on the other person. And then when it got to the point when the other person got to start asking questions, instantly, oh, well, it is time to go. And it was almost like 4 hours. So, yeah, just a little bit of update on my day. That's what I was focusing on a good part of my day. And I forgot I had I did a little artwork I was doing for the neighbor's kid. So those who follow me on Twitter, I'll probably uh, put that picture up tomorrow. Let's see. Said Viacom owns MTV. Yeah, Viacom owns a lot of shit. Actually, a lot of people don't realize that. What about Mossad? Um, what about Mossad in particular? There are so many directions I could go answering Mossad. The history on Mossad. What do I think they're up to now? I mean, what would you like to know about Mossad? They do have an interesting TV show also. So there's a whole lot of a whole lot of ways I could answer that about Mossad. Um, I know that Mossad, for those who don't know what Mossad is, I guess I can give that brief explanation. Mossad would be the secret elite arm of the intelligence agency. It would be the Israeli equivalent to, say, our CIA or MI5, which is in Great Britain. That would be the equivalent of Mossad for those who don't know. If you've seen that old that Hollywood movie Munich, and it goes into the Israeli athletes who were assassinated at the Olympic Games. I believe it was in 1972. Um, though that team which they assembled together, which went after and attacked or got revenge on the terrorists which attacked the Olympians. That was Mossad. That was like one of their initial stories when they were first coming together. Mossad, do they run Hollywood? No, they don't run Hollywood. But the thing about it is, and I got to be careful how I answer that question. Um, People who have prominence, a good number of people who have prominence in Hollywood have affinity for Zionism. Therefore, they would definitely be in favor of anything which Mossad does. So if Mossad needed help from some of these set individuals in Hollywood, uh, more than likely they would lend whatever hand they could. If it was, hey, can you put me up in one of your beach houses for a moment? We just need to get into the country for a while to do this, do that, whatever, give them some kind of cover. Yeah, I have no doubt that they would do that, but I won't go any further than to connect anybody directly to Mossad because I don't have any kind of evidence of that. It would all be it's all completely speculation at this point because I haven't really done a lot of research into the ties of Mossad and Hollywood. Hollywood, how I see it for the most part, is they a lot of the interests in Hollywood all line up together. So since a lot of their interests line up together, it's kind of easy for a lot of the people in Hollywood to be on the same page. Um, what I mean by that, for instance, um, what I noticed about a lot of the movies, you go back a couple of years ago, and a lot of the movies that you would see come out had much deeper and richer storylines. Well, if you've noticed, like I have, how the storylines have gotten a little bit more watered down, is because all the executives in Hollywood came to the agreement that it would be much easier if they watered the storylines down a little bit so it would be easier to translate into foreign markets. That is why you saw that change. So that's something that all of the studios came into agreement with because they saw a better opportunity to make more money off of foreign markets. That's just one example. There are multiple I could go into. Um, let's see. Um, oh yeah, I saw a tweet the other day. It might have been earlier today or yesterday, and they said it was talking about the different so-called progressives. And so it went into AOC is complicit, Bernie is complicit, Marianne Williams is complicit, Andrew Yang is complicit, and it pretty much went down the whole list. And a couple of people responded, well, how was Bernie, how was he complicit? He said something, and how is AOC complicit? They both said something. Here's the thing. Saying something is one thing. All of us can say something. But this is what we forget. They're elected officials. We're not. So whether we say something or don't say something, it really doesn't matter. But them, on the other hand, saying something is just, that's almost like, the bare minimum I feel that they should be doing. If you really care about the issue as vehemently as they try to proclaim themselves in their terrible acting jobs, I'd say, you could easily say, hey, funding needs to be held up. I'm writing a bill on this tomorrow. I guarantee you won't see not one single one of these so-called Democrats who are so outraged by what's happened to the Palestinians come out and write legislations. Maybe I give one possible one. Hold on a second. The only exception I would give is possibly Rashida Tlaib. That's the only exception I see. And the reason why is, of course, she's a Palestinian. So, of course, this has to really hit home and be wrestling within her. And so the rest of them, they can all come out with their, oh, well, I really think Israel needs to stop, and this is a self-defense, and they can say all their little statements they want to say. But none of them will use their elected office to actually try to affect any change. And that's what we have to start looking through in general. All of these politicians, it doesn't matter who they are. I mean, look at Andrew Yang. Not that long ago, a lot of people were, yang-ganging it and thought, oh, he's the best choice. If he would have been president, you see what his reaction was to Israel. None of these people, in my opinion, when it comes down to the real meat and potatoes and serious issues which they need to deal with, none of them are going to have enough nerve to put their neck on the line. And so, I know it sounds gloomy to put it this way, but you just got to look at it as the system is rigged. It's on autopilot. They're going to do a couple little things to feign it your way and to make it look like you have a little wiggle room and power. But the only real power I feel most people have is if you're focusing on the local levels, but the national level, that's a waste of time completely. That's a complete waste of time. Focus on the lower levels, and as more people actually just start tuning out of national politics as a whole, they'll be forced to have to do something, because you can't justify saying, oh, well, we won by all these numbers, and you don't see anybody at the lines, nobody at the polls. They can tell, postage, how many actually came in. And so if all of a sudden more and more people are pulling out of the system, then it forces the media to have to cover it. And right now they definitely don't want to. So, I mean, that's, I guess, my recipe on things which I believe that people should try. But hey, I'm just me, and there's only so much my little voice can do. My platform's not very large, and I do appreciate those who do enjoy listening to my opinions on some of these things. Hopefully that it's educational, informational, enjoyable, entertainable, all that stuff. But, unless we all start looking at things in a different light and start challenging things more and stop giving the benefit of doubt to a lot of these politicians who give you no real reason to actually believe they're going to do anything that they say they're trying to do. Um, oh yeah, one. I guess I'll go give one little interesting story, which I noticed before I get out of here. Um, I hate that I lost my paper, but CNN reporter out of Pakistan recently just got in trouble for making a lot of very interesting statements. And those statements had to do with admiration for Adolf Hitler. He went so far to say one of the quotes, well, one of the tweets, because he tweeted this out. Um, what was it? What was it? Goodness, goodness, forget. What was that? Oh, we need a Hitler right now. And then another one was in the World Cup. I rooted for Germany because Hitler was a good German and he did a good job on those Jews. I I was like, whoa, I'm not crazy. I mean, I'm shocked that somebody who's working for CNN and is saying these tweets at CNN gets away with putting these tweets out. Now all of a sudden everybody just found out about it, and now everybody is ready to burn him at the torch. But all this time he's been sitting there coming on TV, doing all of his appearances and everything, and we get censored. I get censored in my DM on messages I'm trying to send to my co-host. And this guy is going on national TV and he can get away with saying stuff like that. I don't know. It's just hilarious, the hypocrisy. Um, I guess that's all I have for tonight. I didn't really have anything major that I wanted to talk about. I just felt like I hadn't dropped any content on here, and I haven't did anything on this channel. I've been focusing so much on my Hebrew Apologetics channel and focusing on the political matrix and a lot of researching. That's why I haven't been doing nearly as much content. It's just research, and hopefully when I get to a point where I feel like I get a good amount of stuff stored up that I can put out and good strong content, I will be dropping you guys some more shorter videos. That said, you all have a great weekend, and look for content dropping soon. That said, this has been What I've Been Thinking with Marcus Cage. You all have a great weekend.